as they go through life. But our being willing to recognize this and embrace this makes us more of a safe space that they will be willing to engage us, because we're going to listen, accept where they are, and then try to find a way, what I call crack the shell, meaning that you're going to be able to help them evolve from one phase to the next, if you want to use that type of terminology. I have in my own writing a piece that I want to just share with you on how this actually happens.
Are you the author of that book?
I am the author of this book. This is my PhD dissertation. So I'm in the process of writing into a book. And as soon as it's published, I'm going to call you all. I'm going to come back down here and have a book signing. The Humanists of Houston. Well, the writer offers these guidelines, I think, to how you make this bridge between helping the person move from one state of consciousness to the next. And I believe this is written in spiritual or religious language, but I believe you can translate it very easily into just secular terms. So where he says the spiritual guide, you may just use the word humanist guide. And it says you're trying to expand the meaning-making capacity of other people. So if you come in contact with a person that you know is kind of staunchly embraced or staunch very deep into religious experience, you want to help them consider other points of view. First thing he says is the spiritual guide needs the ability to communicate that she or he understands the one being guided. The effect is an increase in the relationality needed for co-constructing meaning-making. In other words, you're going to understand that individual, know where they are, and your way of understanding them, and just accept that this is where the individual is. The second step is to consider offering supervised practice that encourages one to generate one's own ideas and theories regarding faith and practices. So how to give a person some guidelines on embracing their own ideas. So for me, I knew that what cracked my shell was I had read the book Fear of Flying by Erica Jong. And Erica Jong wrote this book in the 70s about her life married to a psychoanalyst. And she was going to a psychoanalyst convention in Vienna, Austria. And she meets these people who are religious. And she calls religion kind of a crack organization. And, or quack operation, that's what she calls it. And I was reading this book now, and I'm in seminary, and I'm about to be ordained, thinking, wow, maybe what I'm doing is really a quack operation. So I began to allow myself to really explore what that means for me to be spending 10 years of my life, 4 years in my MDiv program, and another 7 years in my doctoral program, studying theology and ministry. Is this really what I think it's open to be, what I thought it's all cracked up to be? And that was kind of the crack in my shell. But picking this step right here, you're trying to encourage people to step out in their own belief system. I had to question the doctrine of sin as I was moving from Methodism to Unitarianism. And that's a big move. It was a big move for me, because I realized that if I say that this is not the truth, and I'm with a group of peers who have staked their whole lives that it is a truth, well, I'm really separating myself from this group in a way that's going to cause me to, at some level, be ostracized. So you want to help a person make that move in a gentle way. So this step is saying, encourage a person to listen to their own ideas, and then develop some confidence that those ideas have as much integrity as the other person's ideas, or the ideas that they've been taught. And third, you want to encourage group work that furthers development as interpersonal persons listen to self-authored views of practice and faith. So in this group, let's say we're sitting in a group of people who are all self-authors, they're self-transformationals, they've moved from being a Christian or Muslim or some person of faith, now they're humanists or atheists. Well, you want to slowly introduce a person to this group, allow them to hear the perspectives. It's like a parent allows their children to hear their own views at the dinner table. And that elevates the child's level of language. See, one of the reasons that single-parent families have such a hard time raising their children is because the absence of the second parent precludes the children from hearing an adult conversation. Well, I think the same thing happens with people of faith and people who are perhaps humanists or atheists. A child that hears two parents having an adult conversation naturally over time will raise their level of cognition and their ability to think in bigger ideas. Whereas a parent who's, when talking to the children, tends to talk in a lower level of education level. The kids don't necessarily grow as fast. So if we were to introduce believers or religious people to our language over time, or you have some self-authoring friends that you hang out with, you want to introduce a non-self-authoring person to the conversation, you invite them to come, and over time, this language can kind of filter, and that they can begin to see that this is acceptable. And there are other people out there who are willing to take this leap of faith with them. And then finally, you want to celebrate or find ways to celebrate the move toward the self-authored perspective and understanding, so that a person that does make the leap of faith can know that it's something worth cheering about and that it's okay to do that. I remember, just going to put myself out there again one more time, but I remember I was with somebody in church one day. We were talking about politics. The guy said, well, I'm a Democrat. And I never heard anybody say in a public setting that he was a Democrat. And I thought, wow, people actually say that in public. and not getting feedback. But he said it with confidence that told me that he was secure in his identity as a Democrat. Same way with people who are humanists. We can say that we are humanists in a way that's confident so that people know that it's okay for us to do the same step. Now, I believe this is often what is lacking in African Americans in the church, is that even though they may have that sense that I don't believe wholeheartedly in the Christian message, am I willing to get myself out there in that way and subject myself to loss of family? I was estranged from my mother for a matter of months, and I changed my name. And I thought I was going to be estranged from her again when I became a Unitarian. Luckily it didn't happen, but I knew that when I put myself out there, I was opening myself up to estrangement from my family, my friends, my colleagues in the Methodist Church, those in my military unit who are primarily Christian. I tried to preach a Unitarian message once, and I got some feedback that I was talking about something that was totally unreligious. So I had to make an adjustment on how I address larger bodies within my unit when I'm before them. But what this all gets down to is another scholar who wrote a book called Living in Postmodernism says, his name is Berger, says, the self-authoring mind generates wisdom that comes from certainty, from having a perspective and believing in it fully. It is a wisdom of persuasion, of taking on multiple perspectives in order to hone and sharpen your own. And I believe this is where we want to move towards as a self-authoring person, is to, you have this sense of confidence that it's okay to be a humanist, even in a room full of theists, and that you can put yourself out there in a way that says, hey, I'm who I am, you're who you are, we respect each other's views. We're going to try to have a conversation about this whole situation. So I think these are the keys that that I would encourage for us to bridge the gap between those who are in the African American religious experience and those who are not. We want to have a conversation with persons, not even just African Americans, but even non-African American humanists who we know are out there. We want to have some way that says that I respect your views, you respect my views, and let's have a conversation about it in a civil form. Because as long as you're trying to debate with an individual about who's right and who's wrong, you really don't bridge a gap. You more or less push a wedge further and further, and you spread the groups apart. That's my message.
Would you go and take some questions?
I will.
Okay. Well, Ed.
Isn't that a surprise? The question is this, in your experience, do you see any convergence of the Afro-American churches and the religious right? I mean, there are some issues there that the media seems to be telling me that, we're, antagonistic towards gays, we're antagonistic towards the abortion, et cetera, the whole right-wing religious agenda. Is there any kind of convergence there of some of the Afro-American churches towards that group? And if so, how do they resolve the tremendous issues?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know in Dallas, I can speak to this because we have several groups of ministers. We have, when I was a United Methodist colleague or minister, which I still have credentials in that denomination, we had a group of African American clergy that were just United Methodist African American clergy. Then there was a broader group of clergy, African American, in the city of Dallas that try to do a lot of social advocacy work. They were more of a liberal group. Then you have another group in Dallas that's a very conservative group. And they are not necessarily doing social justice types of work. But I don't really see them converging. They tend to be fairly distinct. And I would say that there could be some movement of some African American clergy towards their religious right, but I would think they would probably be in the minority. I mean, there are African American churches that do stand on the conservative side, if you want to split the two, conservatives and the progressives or the liberals. But I would say that majority, they are fairly distinct.
Could I just address that for you? I've noticed that the black community does have this, when you look at it in a social context, and you take it away from the religious perspective, there is a social mechanism that takes on this attitude of despising homosexuality in general, just when you encompass the entire community, and I know I'm generalizing, but the thing that I've noticed over the past few years, because I came out of a mega church and I saw how that evolved, and I saw that the religious right, in my perspective, was influencing the black church, and so that not only takes on that perspective of this staunch attitude about homosexuality, but it was abortion rights, but it was also given a security that many of these churches could promote individuality from the standpoint of wealth building, these prosperity gospels, and many of these pastors that have these huge churches were attaching themselves to the religious right. And one major example is Eddie Long, the